Hello everybody, and welcome back to Certified Collectibles. Today we're going to be giving you guys a market update, mostly across the categories that we deal with here on this channel. That's going to be graded video games, graded comics, coins, action figures, and CCGs, specifically Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Force of Will, MetaZoo, maybe Flesh and Blood. So those 5 categories are what we're going to give you guys the update on, but some of the things we talk about today will apply across some of the other collecting categories. But I know most of you guys are worried about the video game market. We did a video, I think a month or two ago, about the video game market specifically, but we are going to address it here again today. That is going to be the first topic we discuss. So let's go ahead and get into the video games. I'm sure that's the one a lot of you guys are interested in. Now, the video game market, if you guys have been watching this over the past 10 months, you've seen a lot of those prices come down substantially. Some of that stuff's down 60-70% from the high back in November of last year. That's kind of when everything peaked. During the free printing, the free money printing of 2021, that pandemic easy money era, when everybody was stuck at home, everybody was just buying collectibles and stocks and Bitcoin and crypto, and anything you wanted to buy, you could flip almost overnight and make money on, buy more collectibles, more stock, more Bitcoin, flip that and make more money. So it was just churning these upward prices. There really was no retracement. So whenever you have that kind of activity, there's going to be pain on the other side of that. And that's what we're seeing now in 2022. That's to be expected. All of us in the industry were expecting a pullback and retracement and lack of participation and a lot of the weak hands exiting the market. And that's what we're having. That's normal. It's not collapsing the market, crushing the market. Collectibles are not, dead, going to zero. The stock market's not dead, going to zero. Crypto, we're not going to get into that. I've never been a believer in cryptocurrency, so a lot of those cryptos will go to zero. That's a whole different game. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about collectibles today. So let's go ahead and talk about the video games, like I said. So most of the games that we're seeing the huge retracement on are the Nintendo titles. The Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and the Nintendo 64. Now, those games should not have been trading for those prices back in November or all of last year, all of 2021. Those games, a lot of it was hype, a lot of it was fear of missing out. People were just chasing these games, pushing the prices way up, and those games are not rare. Super Mario Bros. 3, we traded case packs of that over the years. We must have sold probably 10 or 15 case packs of that. Super Mario Bros. 2, we probably had 50, 60 mint copies come through here over the years. Same thing with Super Mario Bros. 1. Same thing with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! The Oval Seal. Circle Seal is a little different. That is a pretty scarce game. We're not talking about that one. But a lot of these titles that everybody's chasing, they're driving the prices up to $1 million, $2 million. And we've told you guys from day one, the pioneer games, Atari 2600, ColecoVision, not necessarily in television per se, but Atari 2600, 5200, 7800 to some degree, and the ColecoVision, those games are the ones that are scarce. They're rare on the market. Like we always say, there's about 100 titles that are pretty common that you see everywhere. Everything else is going to be scarce. When these pops come out, you guys are going to see that there's 5 games total graded for a title, 2, 1. There's not a lot of those games graded, and that's why in the video game market right now, those pioneer systems, Atari 2600 games we cannot buy affordably anymore. We're getting beat out of everything we bid on in auction. The Atari 2600 games are doing very well. We bid on the He-Man, Master of the Universe. That game in 9.4 is selling for $8,000 now. We used to pay $500 for that 2 years ago. The Pac-Mans, our last 9.6 we sold for $37,000. We can't even buy another 9.6. I think there's only a handful that exist. There are no 9.8s. And we've been offered some of those in 9.4 for about $20,000, $30,000 as well. 9.4s are almost possible to buy as well. So Pac-Man and high grade are doing incredibly well. Like I said, we're getting beat out of everything we ever try to bid on now. Kaboom, once again, selling for a couple $1,000. Game we used to spend, a few $100 to buy. It seems like a lot of people are rushing back and buying the Atari 2600. And the reason is because those Nintendo games, they were pushed way up. They're collapsing down. The Atari was never pushed up. People didn't really care about it. People ignored it. It was kind of pushed in the background. Everybody laughed at it. And now people are starting to realize how scarce those games are, and they are starting to bid those up. So those are following a natural price movement. And so those games we have absolutely no concern about. They're strong. They're doing well. Like I said, there are a lot of titles that are common, so you have to know what you're dealing with when you're dealing with Atari 2600. That is a more sophisticated console to collect for. Now, the Nintendo games, a lot of you guys ask us this and send us messages in the comment section. You're saying, well, if the Nintendo games are so common, why aren't you, if they're that readily available on the market, why aren't the populations rising in the WADA population report? There's a big reason for that. Mostly it's price. Most of the grading companies charge a value fee based on the value or the market value of the item you're sending in. WADA charges 2% on anything, I think over $2,000. I'm not really sure the lower level. So they charge 2% value fee. So if you got a game like a Mario Brothers that's selling for $1 million in the market, and the $1 million is the market value, 2% of that is $20,000. So if you don't pay them $20,000 for the value fee, they're not going to grade your game. You know, $20,000 for $1 million game. If you got a $500,000 game, it's going to cost you $10,000 to grade it. Well, $10,000 value fee plus grading fee, insurance, and shipping, both back and forth. If you got a $250,000 game, $250,000 game that sells for $250,000 in the open market, you got to pay them $5,000 to grade it. And that's why you're not seeing the pops go up in the WADA pop report. People aren't going to spend $20,000, $5,000 on these to grade these games when the prices are falling. You know, and you will see as prices continue to erode and prices fall for those games, you will see a lot of stronger hands buying them out of the secondary market ungraded and then sending them in, you know, at a lower level, at a lower price level, and it makes it much cheaper to grade. You will see the pops start going up. Now, just because the pops aren't going up doesn't mean those games are not out there. You know, those games are still out there, still in mint condition. People are trading them ungraded. You know, you can still tell what a 9.4, 9.2, 9.6 game looks like ungraded. They're still trading in the secondary market ungraded, and that's, you know, that's still going on. Just because it's not on the pop report doesn't mean they're not out there and not being traded. But that market, like I said, very weak right now. People got sticker shock. People got really freaked out when the price started dropping. A lot of weak hands started to sell. Fortunately, when you're talking about $1 million games, $500,000 games, you know, when you're talking about these huge prices, huge numbers, those are strong hands holding those games. Those people are not going to fire sell them. They have plenty of money. They're just going to go on the shelf. They're going to watch it fall, and they're going to watch it retrace upward. You know, they're going to watch the prices go back up. Will they ever reach those previous highs? You know, that's to be seen. I personally don't think a lot of those games will reach those highs again, but they will go back up to some level. You know, we'll have to see where that lies. You know, the video game grading market is relatively new, like we saw with comics when they first started grading comics, coins when they first started grading coins. The first year or so, everybody raced in, pushed prices way up. As the years went on, you know, the prices fell, and then price went back up again. And we're seeing that with the video games. You know, a lot of those games that we saw the retracement for on the Nintendo systems, you know, they will go back up to some level. We don't know what that level is. Probably won't be those highs we saw back in 2021. But like I said, the Pioneer systems, very strong. Like I said, we're getting beat out of that. We're still seeing all-time highs being made in the Pioneer systems. The Nintendo era, you know, that's pretty weak right now. If you know what you're doing and you're comfortable paying some of those prices that are now on the market, that the previous prices have fallen down to, if you're comfortable paying those elevated prices still, it might be a buyer's market. We really don't know what the real price is for those games yet. It hasn't quite found its spot. But the modern systems, you know, the PlayStation 4, well, except Fortnite. Fortnite you saw collapse. We used to sell 9.8s at Fortnite for $60,000, then 40, then 20. I think the last one we sold for like $5,000. So you are seeing some of the new systems, PS3, PS4, Xbox, all those kind of come down as well. Not collapse, but probably down to where they should be. For instance, the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, the Circle Seal, you know, the orange bullets, that one there, you know, in an 8.5, we have an 8.5 here. That game was about $80,000 or so before this big run up. It ran up to about $140,000. Now it's back down to about $80,000. So it kind of erased the froth off the market. All the froth was kind of scooped off the market, and it kind of went down to this 2019 level. So they're still elevated from where they were back in 2018, but you know, they're not at the 2021 levels. You know, you are seeing retracement. So the video game market overall, let's wrap up the video game segment of this. The video game market overall, pretty weak, except the Pioneer systems and some special titles within, you know, the Nintendo era and the modern era. Some of those are still performing well. Everything else is still kind of weak, finding its niche, finding its place, finding the price in the market. So it is a buyer's market for that. So keep that in mind when you're out there pricing games. So now let's take a look at comics. So the graded comic market, incredibly strong. I mean, we don't really see hardly any price retracement on this. When you do, it's title specific. You know, most of those titles that are selling now are selling the same price they were back in 2021. You know, They haven't really moved up much, but they have not moved down. And if you're looking at some of the Silver Age, Golden Age, Bronze, Copper, all those keys, you're still paying more than you were last year. So those comics are still doing incredibly well, incredibly strong. The comic market is still on fire, still moving upward. We're very confident in that market. We're still buying into that market, even at elevated prices, because we just have faith in that market going forward. You know what, we just bought a handful of books today, Copper Age books, and I think we bought them like maybe 10% lower than what they were last year, just because we bought a huge group, but the price wasn't as cheap as we wanted to pay. You know, these are books we bought 2 years ago for $400 or $500. Now they're still trading for $2,000. It's just where the market is, and like I said, it's going up. The comics are doing great, and we have absolute faith in that market. You know, we haven't really seen any price retracement. Title specific, some titles have fallen, but that's more due to the fact that speculators were buying those titles to begin with, pushing the price up. It didn't really have anything to do with the macroeconomic impacts that are affecting the other collectible categories. So comics, incredibly strong. You guys don't have to worry about the comic market. Even modern comics are doing pretty well. Like I said, title specific, if speculators got a hold of them last year and pushed the prices up, those are pulling back and collapsing a little bit. But, you know, some of those titles do have strength and they will pop back up. Some of them, it was just pure speculation. Those titles aren't going to go anywhere. So once again, you kind of have to know what you're buying. Make sure you're paying the right price for those. But the vintage comic market, incredibly strong, doing great. So let's talk about coins, graded coins. I know a lot of you guys don't really get into the graded coin market. Very sophisticated market. You know, you really have to know what you're doing. And the coin market, you know, once again, very strong in the top 10% of that market. The top 10% of U.S. coins and world coins doing incredibly well. I mean, record prices. There's been an auction just recently of a collection that came to market for the first time in 25 years. Record prices. It went for moon money. 2-3 times estimate. I mean, the top 10% of the coin market doing incredibly well. Most of the other parts of the coin market, when you start talking about type coins, you know, like the Morgan dollars, peace dollars, walking libs, you know, standing lib quarters, you know, Lincoln cents, Buffalo nickels, Indian cents, any of the type coins, especially U.S. type coins, that stuff it's not going to move for a while. And that stuff is very depressed. It got depressed during the last pullback 5-6 years ago. It's not, you know, it's not really going to be moving much. So if you're collecting that, that's just for enjoyment. You don't really expect to see much gain out of that particular market. The modern coin market, it's kind of specific. There are a couple releases that do incredibly well and hold up really well, but most of the modern releases aren't doing all that well either. You know, so the modern coin market is definitely a little bit affected. During 2021, all the modern coins were selling for a huge premium. They were doing great, but you know, once again, that was a lot of speculation. So those prices are falling back. They have pulled back. They're still solid. They're still selling for retail prices, but not selling for huge premiums. You know, so even if you're buying them now, you're probably sitting pretty good on, you know, for the prices you're paying on the market now. Like I said, the market pricing is fair for all the modern coinage. Well, most modern coinage. It all depends, I guess, who you're buying it from. But if you're paying the right price, you're still sitting okay on modern coins. But like I said, top 10% of the coin market overall, as a category, doing incredibly well, outperforming everything else. You know, a lot of those coins, like I said, there's only one known. These are specimen coins, like high grade proof gold. If I'm talking about like pre-1900, especially the world coinage, you're talking about like 16th, 17th, 18th century material. That stuff is doing incredibly well. You know, so if you're in the coin market, you already know this. You already know what segments are doing well. You know what to buy, and we're talking about big money for those coins. So a lot of smaller collectors or a lot of collectors starting out aren't going to be able to participate in that particular market. If you are able to participate in the coin market, like I said, a lot of the modern releases are priced affordably right now. They're not trading for huge premiums, and there are some opportunities in that, but you really have to know what you're buying. It is product specific, so make sure you research it before you buy it. Otherwise, you know, you could be sitting on a loser. Some of those coins are doing pretty well, though. So now let's go ahead and talk about the graded action figures, or the vintage toy market in general. Now, the graded action figures doing incredibly well. Those are incredibly strong. If we're talking about the G.I. Joe action figures, He-Man, Thundercats, Star Wars, more or less any of the toys or any of the cartoons from the 1980s and late 1970s, those action figures are doing incredibly well in this market. We actually just priced out a deal a few weeks ago of He-Man action figures. These are figures we used to pay $200-300 on. Now they're selling for $3,000 or $4,000 in AFA 85, AFA 80. you know, that market is still doing incredibly well. Those prices are still holding. That material is scarce on the market, especially in clear bubbles. A lot of those bubbles yellow. So high grade, clear bubbles, that market is doing incredibly well. The toy market overall, the vintage toy market overall, is still holding up okay. Though, you know, once again, it's going to be a little bit item specific, where you do see some of the items pulling back dramatically from a lot of the speculators that got a hold of them back in 2021. But as far as the action figures go, those things are doing incredibly well. I mean, we're surprised to see how well some of those are holding up, especially the He-Man, the Thundercats. You're talking about still $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for a lot of those figures. You know, maybe $10,000 for the He-Man and Skeletor, especially if you get into 8-backs, the early material. You know, even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we used to pay like $100 for those. You know, now those things are $1,000 in '85. Once again, you know, that market is doing incredibly well. So vintage action figures for the 80s toy lines are doing really well. The toy market overall, though, use caution when you're getting into some of the other toy categories. They're not all doing very well. Like I said, it is item specific. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the CCGs. This is our last topic for today, and I'll let you guys go. We just wanted to make a short video today. We weren't planning on rambling too long, but the CCGs, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Force of Will, Flesh and Blood, and MetaZoo, those 5 games specifically, those are the ones that are more heavily traded. So those are the ones we're going to focus on. Pokemon doing incredibly well, holding up nicely, both in sealed product and the graded cards. The CGC graded cards, PSA, or Beckett. Any of the graded cards are doing okay. There is a little bit of price retracement on those, but not anything substantial. You're not going to get any deals. It might be a little bit off, it's high, but a lot of those cards are still trading at pretty high prices, but that is the price. You know, if they're able to hold up in this market, that is the price. If the market turns in 2023, if we start seeing a lot of strength in the market, expect those prices to keep going up. But Pokemon, sealed product, and cards, graded cards are doing great. Magic the Gathering, use a lot of caution in Magic the Gathering, especially modern Magic is what I'm talking about. The reserve list material, it has come down a little bit with Magic the Gathering making that announcement about their 30th anniversary, or their 30-year special set they're releasing where they're reprinting all the Power 9 cards. They're not going to be tournament legal, but they are, and they're not going to be the same artwork. They kind of modify the artwork a little bit to get around the reserve list. But now that they're reprinting some of those Power 9 cards or some of those reserve list cards in these special sets, people are a little wary. You know, you do see some of the buy lists go down. Magic is going to screw up their own market by doing this, and they're releasing a ton of modern product. I say every 6 weeks there's a new modern set, so nobody even gets to crack the sets, grade the cards, get them back for grading before there's a new set to send out. So as far as the modern Magic market, be very careful with that. There are some sets that do well, both graded and sealed product, but once again, it's very set specific. Like the new Infinity set that just came out a few weeks ago. That set is doing great, sealed and graded cards, single cards. Dominaria, not so well. What was the set before? Oh, like the Baldur's Gate, a few sets before that did horribly. And I think you had Double Masters, that's doing okay as well. You know, that one's holding up, Infinity's holding up. So out of the last 5 sets, there's 2 they're doing okay. So like I said, use caution with Magic the Gathering. They're releasing a lot of product. The market's getting a little weak from it, and people are starting to lose confidence, especially since Hasbro, you know, Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast that produce Magic the Gathering. Hasbro sells directly to the customer on Amazon, and they just dumped a ton of their high-end collector boxes to customers for about $80. Distributors charge retailers $185 for those boxes, and they're selling them direct to the people, direct to customers for $85 a box. That shows they have no confidence in their own product and that they have too much of it. That's going to collapse a lot of those sets. So just be careful with the Magic the Gathering. That is the one that we would say, if you had to only pick a couple games to get involved with, we would say stay away from that one. Put the money into Pokemon. As far as Flesh and Blood and Force of Will, once again, those are more niche-y sets. So definitely, if you're collecting these sets, sealed and graded cards, do a lot more research on those. Find out what you need to buy specifically with those sets. Not every set is worth money. Not every card is worth money. So definitely research those sets. There is some potential in those. Some of those sets are doing okay. Some of them aren't. So it is set specific for those 2 games, Force of Will and Flesh and Blood. So make sure you know which set you need to buy to add to your collection now. Because if they're holding up now in 2022, they should do well in 2023. And finally, MetaZoo. MetaZoo is one of the newer card games. I think they've released 5 sets though. The last one that just came out, Seance, that set is going to be huge. We do expect to see pretty strong pricing in that. We've seen a great price on pre-sales. I think it's already sold out distribution, and that's a 50,000 unit print run. So that one there is going to be a lighter print run. That one there we do see actually having great potential going forward. The sets before that, you know, UFO, it's holding up, but it did fall back a little bit. It is holding at its new level, but that's a 100,000 unit print run. That one there is a little weaker. Going forward though, we do see promise in that. Same thing with Wilderness, 100,000 print run, but we do see promise, you know, 10 years from now, 5-10 years from now, because MetaZoo is producing a whole media for MetaZoo. They're producing animated series, I think comic books, they're doing cartoons. So they have a big plan. Video games, they have a big plan for MetaZoo and all the MetaZoo characters. So if you're actually getting into a new card game, MetaZoo is the one to get into. That one there has great potential in our opinion going forward. You know, all the other CCGs, besides those top 5, use extreme caution. You know, the market is weak right now. You know, that's, some people say that's a buyer's market, but you know, if you buy trash, you know, it's still trash in the future. So make sure you know what you're buying in this market with those other CCGs. There's a lot of them out there. So we suggest just sticking with those 5 strong ones. Pokemon specifically, if you can only do one, do that one. If you're looking for a new one, do MetaZoo. Magic the Gathering, use extreme caution. It is set specific. So there is the update on those 5 categories. Like I said, the collectible industry, you know, it's going to be marching into the future. It's not going to zero. I know everybody's freaking out, selling out everything they bought last year at a loss, trying to get any of their money back. If you guys just hold on for a few years, a lot of the stuff's going to recoup. It might not go back to its all-time high, but if you didn't buy it at the all-time high, you're still okay. If you bought it at the all-time high, you might take some loss, but it won't be like the loss you're taking now. You know, everybody's freaking out, trying to get out of everything right now, but we are seeing a lot of stability, a lot of strength come back into the market right now. You see it with the stock market. You know, you're seeing with some of the crypto actually bottoming out and leveling and starting to move upward. You know, you're starting to see it with some of the real estate. Real estate came down, you know, now starting to bottom and stabilize a little bit. So you are seeing some stabilization in other asset markets. So you're going to see it in the collectibles market as well. Because don't forget, a lot of people use their discretionary income that they get from those other sources, you know, stocks and bonds and crypto and real estate and all those other transactions, they use that money to buy collectibles with. So when that money is sucked out of the market, they're not buying collectibles, they're not supporting that market, so that market collapses as well. It all has to do well for a collectibles market to do incredibly well. So just keep that in mind also. So the collectibles market, in general, is soft right now. But like I said, there are segments of each of those categories that are doing well. So do your research. There's still opportunity out there. It is a buyer's market for a lot of this material. So definitely keep that in mind when you're out there pricing stuff to add to your collection. So we hope this update was helpful to some of you guys. Please feel free to drop some comments in the comment section below. Thumbs up if you like this video. As always, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you for joining us here at Certified Collectibles, and we'll see you again next time.